Have you ever woken up from a bizarre dream? You've suddenly gained the ability to fly, you're busy reliving an old argument, or perhaps chatting with a childhood pet, and wondered why. Why does my brain do this every night? Well, you are not alone, and tonight we'll be diving deep into the mystery of dreams to answer that very question, while unpacking the science of the sleeping mind, experimentation, ancient hypotheses, and practical ways to harness them for better sleep, creativity, and clarity. Watch to the end to gain the tools to understand and maybe even control your dreams, while changing how you view your very own subconscious. Hit like if you're dream curious, subscribe for more, and let's get into it. First, let's look at the basics. Dreams happen most during REM sleep, that being rapid eye movement, during which your brain lights up as if it were awake. We cycle through 4 to 5 REM periods nightly, usually totaling about 90 to 120 minutes of dreaming. However, the myth that you only dream during REM is exactly that, a myth. Non-REM dreams are generally shorter and can be likened to more of a thought than a complete, although often nonsensical, narrative. And yes, everyone dreams, even if you don't remember it. But this leads to the great question of why. Would evolution really waste energy on what is essentially in-flight entertainment streamed right to your pillow? Well, the general consensus is no. Although it may not always feel like it, our understanding is that dreams do serve a purpose which can span from the likes of survival training right through to memory and emotional processing. To explore this, let's break down some of the leading theories. Threat simulation theory. Threat simulation theory likens dreams to an ancient virtual reality simulator where your brain gets to replay dangers like falling from a great height or arguments that can have damaging social implications to prepare you for just such real-life occurrences. The fact that war veterans dream of threats more often and that children dream of monsters during times of increased anxiety are examples used. Additionally, it was found during lab tests that you wake faster from scary or threatening sounds during REM sleep, which demonstrates a heightened defensive state during these Matrix-esque training scenarios. Memory consolidation. Consolidating memory is a compelling explanation for the purpose of dreams, as they act to sort through the enormous amount of data gathered during the waking hours. To achieve this, the hippocampus replays the events while the prefrontal cortex sorts and files them away for long-term use. Support of this hypothesis can be seen in rats that are learned to navigate a maze, where an opportunity to sleep can see performance jump by as much as 20%. The researchers found that when rats were deprived of sleep immediately after learning a new maze route, they struggled significantly more the following day. However, those rats allowed to sleep and dream showed marked improvements, suggesting that the replay mechanism during sleep was literally cementing the learning pathway into memory. The same principle applies to humans. A study conducted at the University of Massachusetts found that students who slept after learning new material retained significantly more information than those who stayed awake. And when it comes to motor learning, like humans playing the guitar, the effect is even more pronounced. Participants who practiced the guitar and then got quality sleep showed greater improvement in their technique than those deprived of sleep, even when the total practice time was identical. The dreams weren't just entertaining diversions, they were an active neurological process strengthening the connections between neurons responsible for the new skill. Emotional processing. Rosalind Cartwright's research on emotional processing through dreams presents a fascinating perspective on how a sleeping brain can act as an overnight therapist. Rather than simply replaying trauma or stress, dreams actually serve to downregulate or dampen the emotional charge attached to difficult experiences. Think of it as your brain gradually converting a highly charged emotional memory into something more neutral and manageable. Cartwright's longitudinal studies on patients dealing with depression found something striking. In the days following a distressing nightmare, depressed patients actually woke up measurably calmer than they had been before. Their emotional states had been shifted. Further, research on individuals going through divorce, one of life's major emotional stresses, revealed that those whose sleep was undisturbed and who had normal dream cycles showed significantly faster emotional recovery compared to those who had sleep disrupted or were denied REM sleep. The dreams weren't making the pain disappear, but they were processing it, recontextualizing it, allowing the person to wake up feeling less emotionally overwhelmed. It's as if your dreaming mind is working to separate the emotional intensity from the memory, making painful experiences gradually more bearable. The Creativity Incubator. Mark Solmes's research into the neurobiology of dreams reveals why sleep has historically been the birthplace of human creativity and breakthrough thinking. During dreams, the prefrontal cortex, that same part of your brain responsible for logic, rationality, and this does not make sense, so stop, actually dials down significantly. Meanwhile, the dopamine levels surge throughout the brain, similar to the neurochemical states you experience during moments of creative insight while awake. This combination creates a permissive environment for wild, unexpected connections. The logical gatekeepers are asleep, and the dopamine-fueled reward system is fully activated. Throughout history, some of humanity's greatest creative breakthroughs have emerged from dreams. Paul McCartney famously woke from a dream with the complete melody of Yesterday already formed in his mind. This is one of the most covered songs in history, born from a sleeping imagination. Einstein himself credited dreams and visualization with insights that contributed to his theory of relativity, spending years visualizing what it would feel like to ride alongside a beam of light. These weren't random occurrences. They reflected genuine neurological truth about how dreams unlock creativity. When you dream, you're operating in a mode where your brain can make leaps across normally separate domains of knowledge, creating novel combinations that your waking, logic-bound mind would just never spontaneously generate. The overfitted brain theory. This is a newer theory inspired by principles from artificial intelligence and machine learning. In machine learning, overfitting occurs when a system learns the training data so precisely that it becomes rigid and then loses flexibility. It can't adapt to new situations. Researchers hypothesize that something similar could happen to your brain if you only consolidated memories through your waking experience. Without dreams, your neural patterns might become too specialized, too locked into the specific routines of daily life. Dreams in this view serve as a kind of pruning mechanism, analogous to how neural network engineers deliberately remove redundant connections to keep their systems flexible. By randomly reactivating and recombining memories during your dreams, your brain maintains plasticity, the ability to adapt and respond to new, unexpected challenges. While this theory is still relatively new, it offers an intriguing perspective on why evolution may have maintained dreaming despite that energy cost. Now, it's important to say that these theories aren't mutually exclusive. Neuroscientists increasingly believe that dreams serve multiple functions simultaneously. Brain imaging studies show that during REM sleep, several regions activate in distinct ways. The amygdala, which processes emotion, is highly active, firing at levels similar to or greater than when you're awake. The visual cortex lights up, generating the hallucinations and surreal imagery. The hippocampus, crucial for memory, is replaying and reorganizing information. But crucially, the prefrontal cortex, your rational, logical center, shows significantly reduced activity. This is why your dreams feel true while you're in them, even when they're completely nonsensical. Your brain's fact checker is just offline. So now, let's take a look at the experimental evidence that's emerged from decades of sleep research, beginning with some of the landmark studies that reveal just how essential dreams truly are. In the 1950s, a pioneering sleep researcher named William Dement conducted what has become one of the most famous dream deprivation experiments. He would monitor sleeping subjects' eye movements, and the moment REM sleep began, he would wake them up. He'd then let them fall back to sleep, and the moment they entered REM again, wake them up once more. He repeated this process over 100 times across multiple nights for some subjects. What emerged was rather remarkable. Each time the subject was deprived of REM sleep, the brain seemed to push back, entering REM more quickly and more intensely on the next sleep cycle. It was as if the brain had an urgent need that had not been met. And when researchers finally allowed these subjects to sleep uninterrupted, the dream reports they gave were incredibly vivid and bizarre. Entire complex narratives that seemed to have been generated in mere seconds. This finding demonstrated that dreams aren't some optional luxury, they're something that your brain actively fights to preserve. Building on this foundation, Stephen LaBerge at Stanford University conducted groundbreaking research into lucid dreaming, that phenomenon of becoming aware that you're dreaming while still inside the dream. What makes this work remarkable is that he found a way to verify lucid dreams scientifically. He trained lucid dreamers to use prearranged eye signal patterns while they were lucid in their dreams. For instance, a dreamer might be instructed to look left, right, up, down in a specific pattern when they became aware that they were dreaming. Because the eyes do move during REM sleep, these deliberate patterns could be detected by the researchers. Incredibly, they were exactly as predicted. This proved that lucid dreamers were genuinely conscious and aware within their dreams. It also opened the door to controlled experimentation inside dreams themselves. Researchers could ask lucid dreamers to perform mental tasks, physically move in specific ways, or even engage in problem solving, all while their brain activity was being monitored. This work demonstrated that lucid dreams aren't hallucinations or delusions, but a genuine altered state of consciousness where some level of awareness persists. Understanding lucid dreaming has practical implications too, because it can be trained. Research shows that practicing reality checks during the day, say pausing and asking yourself, am I dreaming? Multiple times throughout the day, then trying to push a finger through your palm or checking a clock, this can increase your chance of having lucid dreams at night. The logic is that if you develop this habit while awake, you'll eventually perform these checks while dreaming, notice something is amiss, and realize you're in a dream. Some studies report that consistent reality check practice can boost lucid dreaming frequency from practically 0 to several times per week for some people. It's a skill you can develop. The relationship between nightmares and trauma has also become a major focus of dream research. Approximately 5% of the general adult population experiences frequent nightmares. However, among people with post-traumatic stress disorder, those who have experienced military combat, serious accidents, abuse, or other severe trauma, that number jumps to around 90%. Their nights are repeatedly invaded by distressing dreams that replay or reprocess the traumatic event. For years, this was seen as purely pathological, a symptom of suffering. However, more recent clinical approaches have actually begun using dreams therapeutically. Imagery rehearsal therapy, for instance, involves working with the trauma patient to rewrite their recurring nightmares and doing that during the waking hours, changing the narrative and, as such, the outcome. When these rewritten narratives are then processed during subsequent dreams, it appears to actually rewire the fear response. The brain, through the dreaming, gradually becomes less reactive to the traumatic memory. The nightmare becomes less terrifying because the narrative has been recontextualized. The relationship between pharmacology and dreams adds another layer of complexity. Cannabis use, for instance, is known to intensify in color dream experiences. Users often report extremely vivid, almost hyper-real dreams, particularly during the days immediately after stopping use, a phenomenon thought to reflect the rebound effect as the brain readjusts. Conversely, antidepressants, particularly SSRIs, those are selective serotonin uptake inhibitors, actually suppress REM sleep for many users. Patients on these medications often report that their dreams become infrequent or unmemorable. It's an interesting trade-off that some patients experience improved mood during the day but then diminished dreaming at night. Even weightlessness affects dreams. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station report that their dreams are less frequent and less vivid than on Earth. The leading hypothesis is that the absence of gravitational input disrupts the body's circadian rhythms, that internal clock that governs sleep-wake cycles. Without the normal proprioceptive input from gravity, the brain's sense of time and rhythm becomes dysregulated. Among the more unusual dream phenomena is something called false awakening, an experience where you dream that you've woken up only to discover moments later that you're still dreaming and still asleep. Some people experience chains of these false awakenings, waking within a dream only to discover they're still in another dream layer, sometimes called a dream within a dream. It's deeply disorienting but relatively harmless. More startling is exploding head syndrome. This is a condition where people hear a sudden, extremely loud bang, like an explosion inside their very head, usually just as they're falling asleep or as they wake. Thankfully, there's no actual physical danger. It's a benign glitch in the transition between sleep and wakefulness, where the auditory processing in the brainstem fires at inappropriate times. This creates the sensation of sound without any actual sound being present. But both phenomena highlight the strange and sometimes unsettling neurological territory that the boundary between sleep and wakefulness can be. Moving beyond the laboratory and into the more personal realm, dreams serve another important function. They give us access to aspects of our own thinking that we normally cannot reach. During waking life, your emotional responses are constantly being shaped by your own rational mind's interpretation and censorship, but in dreams, emotions are amplified and on full display while the rational mind sleeps. This combination can actually be remarkably revealing. A person experiencing a recurring chase dream, for instance, might interpret this on a literal level. Perhaps they're afraid of being caught or pursued literally. But more often, the dream is expressing something about what they're avoiding in their waking life. The feeling of being chased, the anxiety and urgency, are emotions your subconscious is generating to signal that something needs attention. By journaling these dreams and looking for patterns, you can often identify psychological or practical issues in your life that your conscious mind hasn't fully processed. Are you avoiding a difficult conversation? Is there a project you know you should be working on? Are you in a situation that, while not explicitly dangerous, nonetheless makes you feel unsafe? The dream is offering information. This is why many therapists and counselors recommend keeping a dream journal. The simple act of recording your dreams immediately upon waking, even just the first few lines or key images that come to mind, trains your mind to remember them better. Over time, you begin to see themes and patterns in your dreams, much like you might see patterns in recurring situations in your waking life. If you notice that you're frequently dreaming about being unprepared for an exam, or showing up naked to an important event, or failing at a task, these patterns often mirror anxieties in your waking world. The dreams aren't random noise, they're signals, and learning to read them is like learning another language your mind uses to communicate with itself. An interesting discovery in dream research is that before bed, setting a conscious intention by thinking to yourself, I want to remember my dreams tonight, or even show me what I need to see, actually increases dream recall significantly. Studies show that this simple practice can boost the likelihood of remembering dreams by as much as 30%. It seems that the mind, even in sleep, responds to intention. This aligns with longer traditions of cultural wisdom about dreams. Indigenous Australians, for example, for thousands of years, have understood the dream time as an alternate, equally real dimension of existence, a space where important guidance and understanding could be accessed. In Western psychology, Sigmund Freud viewed dreams as wish fulfillment, expressions of repressed desire bubbling up from the subconscious. While modern neuroscience has moved past some of Freud's specific ideas, his fundamental insight that dreams reveal something about the structure of the unconscious mind has endured. Carl Jung expanded on this, proposing the concept of the collective unconscious, suggesting that some dream symbols and archetypes are shared across humanity, appearing in dreams far across cultures. While the specifics are debated, the core notion that dreams reveal something true about the human mind and its depths still remains compelling. If you're interested in actively working with your dreams rather than just passively experiencing them, there are in fact several evidence-based approaches you can experiment with. First is the practice of dream journaling, which we touched on briefly. Keep a notebook by your bed the moment you wake up. Before you do anything else, write down whatever you remember about your dream. Don't wait to get to it later. Memory of dreams fades extremely rapidly, sometimes within minutes. You don't need to write the complete narrative if you can't recall it. Fragments, emotional impressions, key images will do. What you're doing is telling your brain, this is important, I want to remember it. Over weeks and months, both the frequency and vividness of your dream recall will typically increase. Even more valuable, reviewing your journal entries over time reveals patterns, recurring people, places, emotions, and scenarios that collectively tell a story about your mind and its processing. A second technique used by those wanting to cultivate lucid dreams is the practice of reality checks. Throughout your waking day, perhaps 10 times or so, pause and ask yourself, am I dreaming right now? Then perform a simple test. Try to push a finger through your palm. In your dreams, your hands often behave strangely and your finger might pass right through. Or look at a clock or piece of text. In dreams, text typically shifts and changes when you look at it, and digital clocks often display garbled numbers. In the waking world, of course, your finger stops at your palm and the clock displays normally. But by practicing this habit during the day, you're encoding the behavior into memory such that eventually you'll perform one of these checks in a dream. And when you do, you'll notice something is wrong. Your finger passes through, or the clock displays impossible numbers, and suddenly you realize, I am dreaming. At that moment of lucidity, many people report that they can exert some degree of control over their dream content, though it certainly takes practice. The third approach is the wake back to bed technique, often used by serious lucid dreaming practitioners. The method involves setting an alarm for about 5 hours after you fall asleep, waking yourself up, spending 20 to 30 minutes awake reading about lucid dreams, reviewing your reality check technique, setting up an actual intention, and then going back to bed. This deliberately extended period of wakefulness creates an unusual neurological condition when you return to sleep. Your prefrontal cortex is more activated than usual, meaning you retain some waking consciousness even as you enter REM sleep, and your body becomes paralyzed and unable to move. This creates an ideal condition for lucidity to emerge. It's not comfortable, you'll certainly be tired, but it's effective for inducing lucid dreams for those motivated to experience them. Technology can also assist. Various apps and wearable devices use accelerometers and other sensors to detect when you enter REM sleep. This is based on subtle movement patterns. And then they provide audio cues, music, voices, or vibrations, and that's designed to trigger lucidity without fully waking you. The principle is that the external stimulus reaches your dreaming consciousness and you realize you're dreaming. Some people find these effective, others find it just wakes them up. It's worth experimenting with if you have access and, of course, the inclination. The broader point here is that your dreams are genuinely trainable. The moment you begin working with them, journaling, setting intentions, practicing reality checks, you're reshaping your relationship with your nocturnal experience. Many people report that as they develop these practices, their recall improves, their dreams become more vivid and meaningful, and sometimes they begin experiencing lucid dreams. And beyond the subjective experience of more interesting nights, there's actual cognitive benefit. People who actively work with their dreams often report improved problem-solving ability during the day, greater creativity, and a more nuanced understanding of their own emotional landscape. But in the end, this all goes to say that dreams aren't random noise generated by a sleeping brain. They're not meaningless entertainment, they're a fundamental part of how your brain works, processing information, consolidating memories, regulating emotion, maintaining cognitive flexibility, and generating creative insights. Every single night when you close your eyes and enter sleep, your brain is doing essential work that directly impacts your waking life. So the next time you wake from a dream, whether it was beautiful, bizarre, or even disturbing, pause for a moment. Write it down. Notice what you're feeling. Ask yourself what your mind might be trying to process. Because your dreams aren't messages from some mythical realm. They're messages from yourself, from your own extraordinary brain, speaking in the symbolic language of dreams. If this exploration has sparked your curiosity, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Leave a comment below sharing your own dream experience. What's the most bizarre or meaningful dream you've had? And perhaps more importantly, start noticing your dreams. Give them your attention. Your subconscious will reward that attention with ever richer, more revealing experiences. For now, sweet dreams, and I'll see you in the next one.